Have you ever had a phrase just stuck in your head for years? For me, it was this one: escape the predictable life. It rattled around in the back of my brain long before I made any big changes or even could identify what it meant. But eventually I realized I just couldn't ignore it anymore. Hi, I'm Amber Hoffman, and after a 25-year career that's taken me from law to travel blogging to running businesses, I'm here to share lessons that I've learned about reinvention and how you can rewrite your own story no matter your age. Today, I want to share the story behind that phrase, escape the predictable life, and what it really meant for me. I grew up believing in a very linear path: study hard, get a degree, land a prestigious job, climb the ladder, and that's exactly what I did, at least for a while. I had my first job at 14 and pretty much consistently worked after that, even working full time through college and part time during law school. I worked at a New Jersey diner, a flea market, a TCBY. I don't even know if they still exist anymore. And I worked at almost every mall in New Jersey. And that's a lot of malls. I waited tables, bartended, managed restaurants, even spent a stint at a Lone Star Steakhouse where they made me line dance. So I'm not afraid of hard work. After law school, I clerked at the U.S. Tax Court in D.C. while earning an advanced law degree. Yes, another law degree. And then I became a corporate tax attorney and spent years working in one of the largest law firms in the world. On paper, it looked perfect. But what people didn't see was the predictability and the weight that came with that. I knew what the next year would look like, the next 5 years, and even the next 10. And I know that I'm not alone in feeling that way. I would make partner, which would mean more hours, more pressure. Yes, more money, but at the cost of everything else. I also saw several older partners just die too young, or have heart attacks because of stress, or get divorced because they weren't spending enough time at home with their partner or their families. And that phrase, escape the predictable life, well, I didn't have it formed in my brain yet. But once I did, just a few years later, it began to define my life as a corporate tax attorney, even once I was past that stage in my life. So in my late 30s, I walked away. I quit the law 30 days before making partner. And for most people around me, it was unthinkable. But to me, it was the only path forward. We had already taken a 1 year sabbatical to travel a few years earlier. And when we returned to the US and to my corporate life, I wasn't intending our time in the US to be so short. We had planned on saying we would last at least 5 years, but we only lasted about 2.5 years back in the US before we fled once again, sold everything, packed a couple of backpacks, and we hit the road. Our first year, we just traveled. I had a travel blog just to keep friends and family aware of what we were up to and where we were. When I learned that we could actually make money from blogging, well, that's where things got a little bit interesting. We started to take things a little more seriously and launched with husband in tow. Over the years, we also ran a few Amazon businesses, some successful, some not. Did some consulting work, really trying to do anything we could to earn some money so we wouldn't blow through our savings and have to return home. When we left as a retired tax attorney and Eric as a former ad salesman, we had no idea how we would be able to make money while traveling, but we figured it out. We took some courses on how to blog for money, how to sell products on Amazon. I became a certified yoga teacher. We just kept our minds open to whatever opportunities arose where we could figure out how to cover our expenses while traveling. What started as a simple travel blog eventually turned into food and drink destinations, the most profitable of our online businesses, and eventually into over a decade of full-time travel. We've been to 70 countries. We've lived in Bali, Bangkok, Spain, and Ireland. We built businesses from our laptops, told stories about food and wine, and lived a lifestyle that, to many people, felt like a dream. It was my way of escaping predictability, of saying yes to something unknown, even if it terrified me. We had escaped the predictable life. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat it. Freedom isn't always glamorous. Travel blogging meant long hours, constant hustle, and figuring things out on the fly. It was unpredictable, but in the best possible way. There were months we made $500, but we just kept up the hustle because with unpredictability comes possibility. Every day was different. Every choice led us somewhere new. And that phrase, escape the predictable life, wasn't just a mantra. It became how I lived, at least through the start of COVID-19. But that's a story for another day. So here's the thing. Escaping predictability doesn't mean you have to sell everything and move abroad or become a full-time traveler. For you, it might mean starting a side hustle, changing industries, or finally taking that leap that you've been putting off. I had a conversation with a fellow tax lawyer back in around 2012. He was working at a large firm, not really happy, and missing important events in his children's lives. I knew he wasn't going to do what we were planning. He wouldn't be selling everything to travel the world. He had a family and a home. But I asked him what would he prefer to be doing with his day to day, and he wanted to become a teacher. He wanted to teach civics or history or geography. And every once in a while, he comes across my LinkedIn feed. He's still working as a tax lawyer in a big firm. I know it's different when you have children, which we do not, but I do hope that someday he takes that leap to escape his predictable life and do something more enjoyable in his day to day. For me, escaping the predictable life meant leaving a safe path as a lawyer, saying yes to travel and entrepreneurship, and now in my third quarter of my life, building businesses back in the US while finding new creative outlets like this channel. The point is, predictability can feel safe, but it can also feel suffocating. And if you've ever felt that whisper that says, isn't there more to life than this? Then listen to it. If this resonates with you, subscribe to the channel because this is where I'll be sharing stories about career pivots, reinvention, and finding freedom, even if you're in your 40s and 50s or older. Because escaping predictability, it's never too late. And I will probably also be sharing some stories about our time living and eating around the world. So thanks for watching. In my next video, I'll share what I call the quarters of my adult life: the lawyer, the traveler, the entrepreneur, and where I see the fourth quarter heading.